From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt, and this is Weather or Not for Tuesday, December 2nd. Coming up on today's show, record cold coming. Expect temperatures to fall below zero across eastern KELOLAND. This will happen Thursday morning. A strong front actually moves through as we get into our overnight hours, and that will eventually lead into falling temperatures during the day tomorrow, eventually settling into record territory for parts, not for everybody, for parts of eastern and southeastern KELOLAND by Thursday morning. Temperatures will go back and forth. I think many of these days may end up below average for probably the next, I would say, 5 days. And then we can get a quick bump up in those temperatures as we get into next week. But that will be short-lived, too. Another hit of some cold air comes in during the second weekend of the month. And then we'll see what we can do about getting periods of snow. In the short term, we are stuck in this northwest flow, so we'll have to time clippers that do come in from the northwest. That will help bring in at least chances to see snow. That trend will continue, I would say, as we do go through the rest of this week and for this coming weekend. Keep in mind, it's not every day, but we will have to time these systems as they do come in from the northwest. As we are looking at today's weather, here's a winter weather advisory in the Black Hills. They are looking at 3 to 7 inches of snowfall. This starts at noon today, and it lasts until 6 o'clock in the morning for tomorrow. Snow will become a little more widespread in the Black Hills as we do go through the morning hours, but especially this afternoon, evening, and tonight. That's the reason why the time frame there is from noon till 6 o'clock in the morning for tomorrow. So Futurecast will bring in that snow for the afternoon and evening, also bringing in a chance of a wintry mix. Look at this. This is at 7 o'clock in the evening. Here's the main front to the north. Okay, once we get behind that front, we'll have a north wind and falling temperatures. But ahead of that front, these temperatures will slowly warm. Numbers probably in the lower 30s late today. By the time we do get into the evening, we can see temperatures middle to upper 20s in southeastern South Dakota. And even with this light precipitation, we could still see these temperatures slowly warm as we go through the late evening hours up until midnight, when this front is expected to move through south central and southeastern South Dakota. But let's pay attention to this precipitation. The model itself is trying to bring this back in the form of rain. That's what you see in green for central and south central South Dakota. And then it changes color to pink and, of course, blue being snow. So here's our wintry mix here. You could even throw in Chamberlain, areas to the east, right along Interstate 90 during the evening. Mitchell, Sioux Falls, freezing drizzle, maybe a period of freezing rain will be possible with this. So that, of course, will lead to some slick areas during the evening hours. And again, I would take that anywhere from south central South Dakota to the east, right along Interstate 90. Front moves through, in comes that colder air. Things will eventually switch over to snow. And don't be too surprised to see some areas an inch or less of accumulation. So we will get some minor accumulations of snow out of this. A lot of that trying to set up in south central to southeastern South Dakota. That would be late tonight toward midnight, or late this evening toward midnight, and then a lot of this goes away. North winds will bring in much colder air. Colder air is also drier air, so it gets rid of our chances for snow as we go through the overnight. Temperatures will continue to fall during the day tomorrow. We'll probably have some sunshine, but this north wind, 15, 25, near 30 miles per hour with these occasional gusts, that will continue to help bring in this colder air. And then we'll see how cold we get by the time we get into Thursday morning. So as we do take a look at these winds for today, more of a south to southwesterly direction, light 5 to 15 miles per hour. And then you do see by tomorrow morning, north winds gusting near 25 miles per hour. There will be some areas a little higher than that. Then we'll change the wind direction again as we get into Thursday, more of a southerly wind. So I had that outline with these temperatures that are going back and forth, and these winds will continue to go back and forth as well. You could see this area here from Watertown to Marshall. We'll have some higher wind speeds into that location as we get a little closer to that. You can see these wind gusts over 40 miles per hour, trying to set up from near Summit, areas to the southeast to include Canby, Marshall, Lake Benton, maybe even approaching 50 miles per hour. And we have Pipestone coming in at 41. And these will be southerly winds for your Thursday afternoon. So we'll have to watch those strong winds Thursday afternoon, parts of eastern and northeastern KELOLAND. Light wind speeds for today. Temperatures will range from the 20s and 30s in eastern South Dakota to the lower 40s in western KELOLAND. Then for tonight, we'll watch this evening, maybe early nighttime wintry mix, but I do think mainly this evening. And I showed you Futurecast riding the interstate there from Chamberlain areas to the east all the way over toward Worthington and southwestern Minnesota. We can have that wintry mix as we do go through the evening hours into early tonight. Once we get into the overnight hours, our temperatures will fall, and then we'll see how cold we get for Thursday morning. And that will be our next topic coming up right after this. We may be breaking records by the time we do get into Thursday morning. Let's go ahead and take a look at that outline. As here's a look at the existing records for December 4th. That is Thursday. Down to 20 below in Brookings, 13 below in Sioux Falls and Worthington. That 32 below in Huron, that is not a misprint. I went back and checked a couple of sources on that just to be safe. That's right in the middle of a 14 below and an 18 below, and it really stands out. You know, when I looked at the records in Huron, that 32 below on December 4th is coming Thursday. I double-checked a couple of sources, and as I mentioned, it's true. I don't think that one's in jeopardy, but I think the other ones will be that I do have those stars next to, and they do include Sioux Falls, Yankton, Worthington, Spencer, and Marshall. As this next graphic, what I did here is I looked at the raw data coming in off of these three forecast models for Thursday morning. You see the American model suggesting 18 below in Sioux Falls, 6 below in Yankton, Spencer at 20 below, Worthington 10 below, Marshall 8 below. The Canadian is even colder, down to 23 below in Sioux Falls, and you see 17 below in Yankton, Worthington at 20 below. How about the European? Well, those numbers come in the single digits, maybe the lower teens below zero. I do have to confess, I'm not that big of a fan of the European forecast models for low temperatures. I like them for the high temperatures. It's the low temperatures that I have a problem with. I think they do great for the highs. I think they outperform the other models that we look at. As far as the lows go, I don't think that that's the case. Now, what I did here is I averaged out all these numbers, and you can see all three of the models average out to 17 below in Sioux Falls, 12 below Yankton, Spencer 18 below, Worthington 14 below, 12 below in Marshall. So that's the reason why, as we go back to this other graphic, that I do have those areas highlighted as the possibility of setting records for Thursday morning. Again, covering Yankton, Sioux Falls, Marshall, Worthington, and Spencer. So we'll see what happens by the time we do get into Thursday morning. But temperatures will warm, and I'll be joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens, and we'll talk about these temperatures going back and forth and what that means. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. I'm now joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens. It says back and forth temperatures, Brian, but this was the first time that Sioux Falls fell below zero. That happened this morning. I saw it down to 1 below. Did you see it any colder?
That's as cold as I've seen too, but okay. I think my car thermometer might have had a 2 below as I was
through fog this morning.
Through fog, through hoarfrost this morning. Boy, that's interesting, too, as I walked out the door, and all I see is glistening frost and the fog layer, which was ever so shallow. It was just enough that the moonlight, which I know we're going back to another super moon, I think that's coming up on the 4th or the 5th of the month here, just in the next few days here.
When we have our record cold on the 4th, Thursday morning.
Yeah, if we're clear, we're really going to see Probably some sparkling snow on the ground with that. But yeah, just a little bit of an interesting reminder, isn't it, on how cold it can get with snow cover. And now, of course, the pattern, interesting to kind of see how things are pivoting here. And Scott, of course, we're watching all the weather patterns here going into the forecast, and we've been talking about this wind chill map. I'm going to hit the play button on this so we can look at the particulars of this forecast. And it looks like we are going to likely go into, it looks like right now, for most of us at least, probably teens, probably maybe minus 20, minus 25, below zero on some of these wind chill numbers. And that's plenty cold. And this is all going to start tomorrow morning. We're not going to warm tomorrow. It's going to be a day of falling temperatures. So my best advice, I think I mentioned this during the show, if you got to fill up your car gas tank, do it today. Okay, you'll thank me later. You will. Because if you wait till Wednesday night, you're not going to like that. It's going to be awfully cold. I'm expecting after church activities on Wednesday night, our kiddos are going to be ready to just get right home because that's going to be a cold car ride.
I'll have to send the message out through the family. Say, Brian says this.
Yep. You've got till midnight tonight. then
to fill up your car.
If you do tomorrow morning, I guess it's okay, but not great.
You'll be huddled.
Yeah.
And then shaky, probably trying to stay warm.
Yep. And then definitely Thursday morning. That's when we'll see a few car batteries tested. I've been going through vehicles on that. I had one for sure that I had to get replaced because it just didn't have enough cold cranking amps. So we tested it. A couple other vehicles have new batteries, so I think we're okay there. But it seems like we just go through that, don't we, Scott? The time of the year and vehicles when you're outside, you're going to test that. So just a little bit of a heads up.
And if they've been slow to start with our, the temperatures that, they've been cold, but they haven't been as cold as what's coming. If they've been slow to start, then it's probably time to get a new battery.
Yeah. And so that will be the course we take here.
Now, I did clear out my side of the garage. We had the decorations.
Oh, you got your decorations out.
Yep, decorations are up on the inside. I put everything up in the attic that I parked in the garage yesterday. So I'm thinking I should be okay. Peyton's car battery, I don't even think is more than 4 months old.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that one should be fine.
Yep.
And it has the remote start.
Isn't that a nice luxury this time of year?
All of us have those now, remote starts. And tell you what, I use it every day of the year. I don't care if we're in the middle of summer. Oh, there's my car. Boop, get the thing running.
Yeah.
First time I've had a remote start.
They definitely are valuable, especially in the wintertime. So, we're going to get back to those things. But here's the story, too. As we go to the next graphic here, the northwest flow pattern that we're in, it's interesting because we're only seeing a quick shot at cold. This is going to last maybe the better part of a day, day and a half. And then we're going to get a replacement cycle of air that's going to come right back at us, and it's going to be featuring more mild Pacific air. And that's one thing about northwest flow. Sometimes people will get locked in on the idea that if the wind pattern's out of the northwest, it's cold. But that's not necessarily true. And in fact, if you look at this configuration, look at where your steering winds are coming from. By the weekend, now, of course, the weekend, we've got a couple things in our own backyard we'll have to deal with. But what I'm pointing out here is next week. This is Pacific air. It's coming right into Seattle and Portland. And once this pattern gets established, we talk about back and forth, kind of like bathtub water. The Arctic air will
sloshing back and forth.
Yep, the sloshing back and forth. Well, you're going to push that out eventually. And so at that point, then it's just a matter of, how does the environment respond with the residual snow cover on the ground? But this northwest pattern is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch as we go into next week.
Well, that's Sunday. After the Clipper moves through, it could give us a chance for the accumulating snows, and we'll talk about that during the next segment. But this is Wednesday of next week, bringing in those above-average temperatures. I mentioned this morning on KELOLAND this morning, melting temperatures. Didn't get too carried away on how warm they will be, but they will be melting temperatures as these numbers do return above average. So that's Wednesday. How long does it last? That's another question because we'll also have to watch for some colder air that may return during the second weekend of the month. So these back and forth trends that we're watching with these temperatures, we'll get our hits of cold air, slowly try to warm up. Whatever snow we get will melt as we do, but we'll probably replenish some of that snowpack as these temperatures fall again. And we have, as you like to say, the clashing of the air masses going back and forth, helping to bring in better chances for precipitation.
And let's, kind of leave that idea out on the table there mid-month. The exact timing, we don't know yet. That's too far out. But I do think that that's an interesting concept because it makes sense in my mind that we should warm up next week, given historical patterns, given the way that this usually happens here in KELOLAND, the way that once we get a good bout of cold, we'll recover, and then we'll hit the reset button. And then we get to watch what happens in the second half of the month. And I know we're going to discuss a little bit more about the snow trends coming up, but obviously that too going to play a role here as we go in the forecast.
Yeah, we'll talk more about our periods of snow as these temperatures go back and forth. That's our next topic coming up. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not with our temperatures going back and forth. We'll have to talk about our chances for precipitation. Like to label that as periods of snow or periods of wintry mix. That just didn't have the right ring to it.
Well, and part of the weather terminology this time of year as we go back and forth on temperatures. But, yeah, we're kind of looking ahead, of course, past today. I know we've got some ongoing wintry precipitation. But, looking out the next couple of weeks, it'll be interesting to see how the first part of this pattern lays out because, as we just said, the steering patterns are out of the northwest.
Yeah, and you can see how that filled in, coming in from the northwest for this weekend. We'll continue to follow the placement of this as the days do get closer, but it does want to bring something in for this weekend. And then I labeled December 14th. That's the next one that tries to fill in across western, say northern South Dakota. And then beyond that, we could have maybe some periods of lighter snows that do try to move through. So it's pointing at 3 episodes there trying to bring in some snow chances today, this weekend, and then around the 14th. This is the American model. This is for today, tonight. We do have the snow in western South Dakota. I talked earlier about the winter weather advisory that's in effect for the hills. And then we'll see how much accumulation that we do get. Cannot rule out a quick inch for some in south central, maybe the southeastern South Dakota this evening and tonight. And then as we get into this weekend, the placement of that one is a little bit different, Brian, compared to the European, isn't it? That one's a little bit farther south. You take the average of it, and then I'll almost take it from Pierre right through Sioux Falls.
Right, and that's where we're at here on this forecast. We have the idea. We know that it's an Alberta clipper. So I always think that that's good to relay because the weather forecast, when we get into the weekend, we already know the building blocks of that. It's not just we throw in a 50 or 40% chance of snow. I always think it's very helpful to understand what this is, and it's an Alberta clipper. So what do we know about Alberta clippers? Well, some of you out there know a lot because you pay attention to this stuff. Some of you may not pay as much attention, so this is a great show to learn more about that. But clippers are known for snow tracks to the left of the surface low feature that'll be coming in. So whether or not that tracks through, say, Billings, Montana to like this model here, the American model, that would take our surface low probably right through northwest Kansas, and then your snowfall would be about 100 to 150 miles to the left of that storm track, and that's why you see that blue that paints in across South Dakota. Now, the European model, which is on my graphics machine, over here, so I painted this in this morning. We showed that a little bit on TV, but, its low track is a little farther north. So what that does is it shifts the storm track. This is the problem, okay? Now, I want to be crystal clear about this. We can make projections about these days in advance, so that's fine. It's kind of a broad statement, I'm only saying accumulations possible. To be frank with you, accumulations probably going to happen, but exactly where within that band, that's the problem. Remember the clipper we had? What was it? The second weekend in November.
That's the one that I was thinking about, because I think we had projections that a lot of that was north, and then we took the liberty. Remember this? Because in our graphic system, we can change the location of it. We're like, let's go ahead and tug that a little bit farther south.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, we
And I
even
don't
did
think
that.
we tugged it
We did that on this show.
South.
Do you remember that?
I do
took
remember that.
I was sitting in this chair and I thought, why don't we just for fun, we'll just shift this whole thing south. And I have our graphic system lets us do that up to 2 degrees latitude, which you'd think they'd give us more than that, but whatever. It is what it is. So there you go. Fun fact you didn't know about our weather system here at KELO. So if the meteorologist disagrees with the computer, we have a lot of liberty to shuffle things around. So it's not just that we're showing the computer. We do a lot of hand-drawn maps. This is one example. I hand-drew this. And what I did is I followed the contour, a little blend of the Euro and the Euro AI, okay? And so I think that lines up pretty well to our thinking. Now, that system that hit us back in November, if people were closely watching that, you'll remember there were 2 lows with that.
Yes.
And it was the first cold front that first night that I think what happened here is it ended up coming in a little stronger. That push of cold was a little bit more, and that shifted the entire baroclinic zone, or basically that temperature contrast zone, a little farther south. And then we had no opportunity to warm up between the 2 lows. I remember thinking that would be the case. Maybe we'd warm up, and we never did. And then we just that snow came in, and that was that. But we melted all of that, Scott.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, are we going to melt the snow that we have now?
Well, we did
next
talk
week's
about
forecast.
Melting temperatures. I'd just like to leave it at that. It's interesting you talked about these models, too, on how we can change them. I myself, I'd like to do that probably more often than I should. We can also take away what some of the precip is showing, so we don't show as big area of a lot of rain or a lot of snow. We can shrink that down, or we can add to it, too, in certain locations.
Yeah,
which is nice.
It's so much more robust than it used to be in the old days. Remember grid algebra? When I started, we were...
Oh, yeah.
Boy, we weren't too old at that time, Scott, and I had to take the machine and put in the grid algebra formulas. Oh, my, that's a story for another day.
But we can't get into that. We're out of time. But thanks for bringing it up, Brian. Good to see you. And thanks for joining us for Whether or Not.